and welcome to our channel. Are you considering a move to Canada? With its stunning natural scenery, welcoming people, and high quality of life, it's no surprise that Canada is a popular destination for those seeking a new place to call home. But the process of moving to a new country can be daunting, especially if you're not familiar with the immigration system. In this video, we give you a step-by-step guide on how to move to Canada permanently so you can start planning your new life in the Great White North. Step 1. Determine your eligibility. The first step in moving to Canada permanently is to determine your eligibility. This involves checking whether you meet the basic requirements for immigration, such as age, education, language proficiency, work experience, and health. There are different immigration programs that you can apply for, such as the Express Entry System, the Provincial Nominee Program, and the Family Sponsorship Program. Each program has its own eligibility criteria and application process, so it's important to research and choose the one that best suits your qualifications and goals. To determine your eligibility, you can use the Come to Canada tool on the Government of Canada website, which asks a series of questions and provides a personalized checklist of immigration options based on your responses. You can also consult an immigration lawyer or consultant for professional advice and assistance. It's important to note that meeting the basic eligibility requirements does not guarantee that you will be approved for immigration. There are additional factors, such as criminality and security, that will be assessed during the application process. Therefore, it's important to be honest and accurate in your application and to provide all the required documentation and information. Step 2. Choose a pathway. To immigrate to Canada, you need to choose the right pathway based on your skills, qualifications, and eligibility. There are different options available, such as the Express Entry System, Provincial Nominee Program, Family Sponsorship, Business Immigration, and Study in Canada. The Express Entry System is a points-based system for skilled workers, while PNPs are specific to each province or territory. Family Sponsorship is an option if you have a family member who is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. Business Immigration is for entrepreneurs and investors, and Study in Canada can lead to a post-graduation work permit and then to permanent residency. It's essential to research each pathway's eligibility criteria, application process, and timeline and seek help from licensed professionals. Step 3. Gather documents. Step 3 is to gather the required documents for your chosen pathway. Different pathways have different document requirements, and it's important to ensure that you have all the necessary documents before submitting your application. Some common documents that may be required include valid passport, language proficiency test results, educational credentials, transcripts, diplomas, degrees, work experience letters or references, police clearance certificate, medical examination report, proof of funds. You should carefully review the document requirements for your chosen pathway and ensure that you have all the necessary documents. It's important to note that some documents may be needed to be translated into English or French and notarized. It's recommended to keep the original copies of all documents and make copies of your own records. Step 4. Submit your application. Step 4 of the process involves submitting your application for the chosen pathway of immigration. This typically involves completing an application form, submitting the required documents, and paying the associated fees. It's important to ensure that all the information provided is accurate and complete. Once the application is submitted, it will be reviewed by the relevant immigration authorities, who may request additional information or documentation. It's important to respond promptly to any requests to avoid delays in the processing of your application. Step 5. Wait for processing. After submitting your application, the next step is to wait for it to be processed. The processing time varies depending on the type of application and the pathway you chose. It can take several months or even years for some applications to be processed. During this time, you can check the status of your application online and respond promptly to any requests for additional information or documentation. It's important to be patient during this process and to follow up with the relevant authorities if you have any concerns or questions. Step 6. Obtain your permanent residency. After your application is approved, the next step is to obtain your permanent residency in Canada. The process can vary depending on the pathway you chose and the location of your application. If you applied through the Express Entry System, or a PNP, you will receive an invitation to apply, ITA, if you meet the eligibility requirements. You will have 90 days to complete and submit your application for permanent residency. You'll also need to provide additional documentation, such as police certificates, medical exams, and proof of funds. Once your application is complete, it will be processed by the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC. The processing time can vary depending on the volume of applications, the completeness of your application, and the complexity of your case. If your application is approved, you will receive a confirmation of permanent residence, COPR, and a permanent resident visa. The COPR will include important information such as your name, date of birth, and the validity period of your permanent residency. You must present your COPR and permanent resident visa to the Border Services Officer upon arrival in Canada. It's important to note that once you become a permanent resident, you must meet certain residency obligations to maintain your status. This includes living in Canada for at least 2 out of every 5 years and paying taxes. After living in Canada for at least 3 years, you may be eligible to apply for Canadian citizenship. Overall, obtaining your permanent residency is the final step in the process of moving to Canada permanently. It's important to follow all the requirements and guidelines set by the IRCC and maintain your residency obligations to ensure that you can continue to live and work in Canada as a permanent resident. Thank you for watching our video on the step-by-step guide to move to Canada permanently. We hope this guide has been helpful and informative for anyone considering immigration to Canada. Remember, the process can be complex and time-consuming, but with patience, persistence, and the right resources, you can successfully obtain permanent residency in Canada. Don't hesitate to seek help from licensed immigration professionals to guide you through the process. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more helpful videos on immigration and other related topics.